From Jerusalem, Israel. This is Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in 1981 in New York State in God of Israel, bless America, and now celebrating our 40th anniversary. I would like to welcome our viewers and listeners worldwide and our live Zoom studio audience to this evening's program in our Root and Branch Association Limited English language conference and lecture series broadcasting from Jerusalem, Israel. And now celebrating the start of our second quarter century. We want to thank, as we always do, for our first quarter century, the Orthodox Union Israel Center, which hosted us for 25 years from January 1995 until December 2020 at the Israel Center at 22 Karan Hayasad Street here in Jerusalem, and especially the Educational Director Emeritus and founder and editor-in-chief emeritus of the unique Torah Tidbits publication, Mr. Philip Chernovsky, his Eshet Chayil, Woman in Valor, Tony Chernovsky, and the long-suffering and wonderful scheduler, Mrs. Itter Rachel Rusek, who kept the whole thing going for the whole place. Thanks to all of you. Now we're on Zoom. Now today is Thursday, May 27, 2021 in the Gregorian calendar, and it is the 16th day of Sivan, 5781 in the Hebrew Israelite calendar. We are broadcasting from the land of Israel, city of God, Jerusalem, Hill of the Priests, Givat Hanania Abu Tor, overlooking Mount Moriah, where we believe that the third and final Israelite temple of Jerusalem will soon be under reconstruction and stand forever, as per the prophet Ezekiel's vision. Please see the biblical book of Ezekiel, chapters 40 through 48. Now, in view of the events of the last few weeks, I found it necessary to add the following statement in my introduction. The Root and Branch Association promotes faith in the God of Israel, who is the creator of us all, honoring and observing his Noahide covenant and laws for all humanity, and for all humanity, as well as us, to honor his land, Torah, and people covenants with his chosen people, Israel. To be more explicit, the God of Israel, who created us all, commands everyone, everywhere, to believe in him right now, to honor and observe his Noahide covenant and laws, and to honor his land, Torah, and people covenants with his chosen people, Israel, of which the Jewish people that we know in the land of Israel and abroad are a small fraction. There seems to have been some misunderstandings on that issue. So the God of Israel created us all right now, says that's what you have to do now. Party's over. Someone can say, well, I don't think so. Okay, wait and see. In fact, for those who know where to look, you can see right now. Worldwide, on this planet and off the planet. I don't want to get into that now. So our speaker, this is not just a regular lecture. We now have a monthly B'nai Anousim seminar hosted by the remarkable Yaffa Batya de Costa, Mrs. and Rabbanit Yaffa Batya de Costa. I had expected much more people for this session. I realize I now have to send out a reminder to the hundreds who signed up for the first one a month ago, which they have to get 2 days in advance, which you will. My apologies to those who would have liked to attend and needed a reminder about that. Introducing Mrs. Yaffa Batya de Costa, Rabbanit, will be my long-term friend and colleague, Dr. Les Glassman, who is our program chair. He's a dentist. If you need a crown or a root canal, come to Jerusalem and see Les. So now I'm going to hand the mic over to Les, and he is going to introduce Rabbanit da Costa.
Well, thank you very much, Lowell. I really appreciate what you said there. It is a tremendous honor and a privilege to introduce Rabbanit Yaffa Batya de Costa. Rabbanit, we first met at the OU a few years ago. I think it could have even been in 2017. It was at the Israel Center, and you gave a phenomenal presentation. And you've been on the Root and Branch a few times, and we are really honored and privileged to have you this evening. So I'm just going to read a little bit, a short bio, because your bio is extremely impressive. And we could spend hours just discussing what you've achieved and what you still are going to achieve. But Rabbanit Yaffa Batya Costa is the founder and CEO of Ezra Anousim since 2005, an Israeli nonprofit. The organization is made up of mostly 30 managing directors from all over the world, and many committed activists, most who of themselves are from the B'nai Anousim. People have joined the organization for many years to work with Yaffa Batya in helping the B'nai Anousim to make a full and public comeback to the faith and traditions of the Sephardi Jewish ancestors. Yaffa Batya's upcoming 30th anniversary of being involved with the movement will be on Purim 2022. She has an extensive business management, consulting, coaching, and projects management background with corporate 100 companies in the USA. And I just want to add that your commitment and your devotion to the B'nai Anousim is legendary, and it's so important. So we really look forward to your talk this evening, and may you just continue, and may your organization just grow from strength to strength. So without any further ado, our esteemed guest, Rebbetzin Yaffa Batya Costa.
Well, thank you very much, Les and Lowell. Is my mic on? I can't tell.
Batya, it's on. It's all good. You're sounding very
Okay.
good. You're sounding very good as always.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, Ben, very much for allowing me to give this lecture on Root and Branch that will be posted on your channel, on your YouTube channel. And I just want to say very briefly, not only thank you to you, Les and Lowell, but to thank you to Moshe, who's going to put up some photos and some videos when we get to that, because I couldn't get my PowerPoint to work. So Moshe, if you want to put up that photo of the elephant in the room, please, and translate for me.
Bueno, es un gusto poder estar con ustedes. La Rabbanit Yaffa Batya Costa, ella es la directora ejecutiva de Ezra Anousim, es una fundación sin fines de lucro. Nos está presentando hoy nuevamente una conferencia respecto a los logros que se han hecho en torno a la ayuda a B'nai Anousim. Esto está patrocinado por Root and Branch, una asociación que también tiene como fundamento promover la fe del pueblo de Israel en el mundo, y esto compete también a Noah y a la humanidad en general. Agradece la Rabbanit Yaffa Batya Costa por la oportunidad. Vamos a iniciar presentando una imagen respecto al elefante en el cuarto y abrir la conversación a partir de ahí.
Okay, very quickly, I'm just going to do a recap of one of the most important items from last month's introductory session, which lasted 3 hours, including the Q&A. But this session, we're going to split the time, half to go to the lecture and half to go to Q&A. So it'll be 45 minutes for lecture and then 45 minutes for Q&A, because we're starting a little late, but we're going to end at 9 o'clock anyway, the official lecture.
Bueno, vamos a iniciar entonces con esta conferencia. La idea es partir a la mitad las secciones. Vamos a primero presentar la información respecto a la conferencia en sí y dar la otra mitad para preguntas y respuestas. Va a ser dividido en 45 minutos cada una. Toda vez que iniciamos un poquito tarde en esta ocasión, vamos a hacerlo así.
Okay, so the first thing to recap is this concept of catch-22, where this is the main situation that needs to be corrected for the B'nai Anousim, is what we call the elephant in the room, which means there's something in the room that everybody knows about, but nobody wants to talk about it. Okay, that's the concept of the elephant in the room. If you remember, there are two forces coming at the B'nai Anousim from different directions that combined have the majority of the B'nai Anousim, specifically in Latin American countries, trapped. By that I mean they're held captive, if you prefer, and they're not allowed to make aliyah, to immigrate to Israel.
Bien, la razón por la cual iniciamos con esta imagen es por este Cash 22, lo que se traduce como un callejón sin salida. Tenemos el elefante en el cuarto, de aquello de que nadie habla, pero todos sabemos que está ahí previniendo una situación en particular. Esto es la situación principal de corregirse para los B'nai Anousim, es este elefante en la habitación. ¿Recuerdas? De esto hablamos en la vez pasada. Hay dos fuerzas y dos direcciones diferentes, combinadas en la mayoría de los B'nai Anousim, en los países latinoamericanos en particular, atrapados, podemos decir así, cautivos, y nos les permite hacer aliyah o emigrar a Israel.
Okay, so there are three components to the Catch-22, and I'm going to talk about all three. There's the Takana, the Mizrat HaPanim, and the dilemma that was created by those two forces coming against the B'nai Anousim.
Vamos a hablar de las tres condiciones que están dentro de este callejón sin salida, este Catch 22, y son la Takana, que se sucedió hace más de 90 años, y también el Mizrat HaPanim, y el dilema que fue causado por estos dos, digamos que estas fuerzas encontradas que afecta directamente a B'nai Anousim.
Okay, so the first one is the Takana. So in the majority of Latin American countries, the B'nai Anousim are banned from becoming members of the regular, which means the born Jewish, communities. And this is due to a ruling for their communities that dates back to 1927, which started in Argentina and then eventually became observed by the Ashkenazi Jewish communities and all other Jewish communities as well. So this ban, it's called a takana, which literally means a community ruling, states that these Jewish communities will not accept converts or reverts, and the word for returnee from the B'nai Anousim, they use the term revert instead of returnee. They're banned from becoming members of their communities, quote unquote, until the end of days, whatever that was meant at that time, we don't know. Whether what they did with this ruling was for good and right reasons or not, like preventing assimilation from Jews in those communities into the Christian or secular world of Latin American countries, we don't know. And we cannot judge that 93 years later what the intention or the motivation was.
Vamos entonces a iniciar hablando de la Takana. Tenemos que saber que en la mayoría de los países latinoamericanos, los B'nai Anousim tienen prohibido convertirse en miembros de las comunidades regulares. Definiendo las comunidades regulares, las comunidades de judíos de nacimiento. Esto se debe a un decreto en sus comunidades que se remonta al año de 1927. Este comenzó en Argentina y luego finalmente fue observado por las comunidades judías ashkenazíes y también por todas las demás comunidades judías en general. Esta prohibición, llamada Takana, establece que estas comunidades judías no aceptarán conversos o revertidos. Esta es una palabra que, con la cual designaron a los retornados de los B'nai Anousim. Y esto para convertirse en miembros de sus comunidades, y cita textualmente la Takana hasta el final de los días. Sea lo que sea que esto signifique, no sabemos. Al final de cuentas fue hecho hace 93 años. Si lo que hicieron con este decreto fue por buenas o correctas razones o no, como evitar la asimilación de los judíos al mundo cristiano o secular en los países latinoamericanos, no podemos juzgar al final de cuentas eso después de 93 años.
Okay, the second factor is Mizrat HaPanim. Now, in modern times, the Israeli Ministry of Interior, Mizrat HaPanim, determined that for all converts in all streams of Judaism, they must convert in the context of, again, quotes, an recognized and active Jewish community. And some of the B'nai Anousim, and we think the majority, would have to convert in order to come back if they don't have either proof or strong evidences of their mother's female line of secret Jewish ancestors. And I believe that they devised this policy. It's an administrative policy. By the way, it's not a part of the Israeli immigration law called the law of return. I think they developed this policy because 20 to 25 years ago and since, there were people calling themselves rabbis who were writing bogus or fake conversion certificates. Now, this was to help Messianic Jews. Of course, they're not really Jews, they're Christians, but it was to help the Messianics to obtain approval for Aliyah, so these people could come to Israel and become citizens and then proselytize Jews for conversion to Christianity. So again, we don't judge what the Mizrat HaPanim did in coming up with this administrative policy. However, it makes it impossible for the B'nai Anousim in Latin American countries to make Aliyah. Because on the one hand, they cannot join with a recognized or active Jewish community, and that's through no fault of their own. That goes back to the Takana from 1927. And in these Latin American countries, in most cases, okay, that's the situation. But if they're in what we call emerging communities, which is what most of them are in, they cannot make Aliyah.
Bien, el segundo punto dentro de esto es la miserada Penim. En tiempos más modernos, por supuesto, habíamos hablado hace un momento de 93 años. Ahora, en tiempos modernos, el Ministerio del Interior israelí determinó que todos los conversos en todas las corrientes del judaísmo deben convertirse en el contexto de una comunidad judía reconocida y activa. Sin embargo, estamos teniendo en cuenta que esto no es posible en Latinoamérica. Y algunos de los B'nai Anousim, creemos que la mayoría, tendrían que convertirse para poder regresar si no tienen pruebas de la línea femenina de ancestros secretos de su madre. Creo que habían ideado la política administrativa que no es parte de la ley de inmigración de Israel, llamada la ley del retorno, porque hace aproximadamente 20, 25 años había personas que se llamaban a sí mismos rabinos, que estaban escribiendo certificados de conversión completamente falsos. Esto fue para ayudar a los judíos mesiánicos, que por supuesto no tienen nada de judíos, estamos hablando de cristianos, a obtener la aprobación para una aliyá, hacer migración a Israel y venir a vivir a Israel. Ser ciudadanos y hacer proselitismo hacia los judíos para su conversión al cristianismo. Entonces, nuevamente, no juzgamos lo que hicieron en la Mizrat HaPanim al idear esta política. Pero esto hace imposible que los B'nai Anousim en países latinoamericanos hagan aliyá, porque no pueden unirse a una comunidad judía reconocida y activa. Esto por causa de la Takana. Y definitivamente no es culpa suya. En estos países latinoamericanos, y esto sucede en la mayor parte de los casos.
Great. Okay, so here's the dilemma. These two decisions were made at different times in the history of the Jewish people and in the history of the Jewish state, the state of Israel, and for different reasons. Be that as it may, these two decisions were not intended at the time to be discriminatory. There were other factors and other reasons going around that caused these decisions to be made. But the two combined have the effect of being discriminatory against the B'nai Anousim de facto, which means in practice, rather than de jure in law. So we're going to be working on helping the powers that be, quote unquote, in Israel to see that they can easily prevent Christian Messianics from coming on Aliyah and continue to do that. And at the same time, allow for an exception process for the B'nai Anousim who are genuine converts from Latin American countries so that they can make Aliyah.
Ahora bien, el dilema en todo esto es que tenemos estas dos decisiones que fueron tomadas en diferentes momentos de la historia del pueblo judío y en la historia del Estado judío, por diferentes razones. Que estas decisiones no tenían la intención en ese momento de ser discriminatorias, las dos combinadas tienen un efecto de ser discriminatorias contra los B'nai Anousim de facto, es decir, en la práctica, en lugar de jure, es decir, en la ley. Así que vamos a trabajar, esta es la intención, para ayudar a los poderes fácticos en Israel a que puedan evitar fácilmente que los mesiánicos cristianos vengan a la Aliyah, que hagan migración a Israel, y al mismo tiempo permitir un proceso de excepción para aquellos conversos genuinos, B'nai Anousim de Latinoamérica, y que puedan hacer Aliyah.
Okay, so the next topic is about social media. Now, we've recently discovered that all over social media, there's evidence of what's called critical race theory, quote unquote, being used to explain discrimination against the Palestinian people. And also, there are people claiming to be from the B'nai Anousim, and we suspect that many may not actually be from the B'nai Anousim, that are criticizing Israel for discrimination against the B'nai Anousim. Both critics are asserting that Israel is a white supremacist country promoting hate against people of color. This is also a major factor in the USA right now of the Democrat progressive left, like the women of the squad. For example, AOC herself is Latina, and the other ladies are either Black, African American, or brown. They could be Arab or mixed races. We have many messages on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms about this.
Ahora, medios sociales. Tenemos que, recientemente hemos descubierto que en todos los medios sociales ahora hay evidencia de esto que se denomina la teoría crítica de la raza y se utiliza para explicar la discriminación contra el así llamado pueblo palestino. Y también hay personas que dicen ser B'nai Anousim, sospechamos que muchos no pueden ser en realidad B'nai Anousim, y que están criticando al Estado de Israel por la discriminación también en contra de B'nai Anousim. Ambos críticos afirman que Israel es un país de supremacía blanca, que promueve el odio contra las personas de color. Este también es un factor importante en los Estados Unidos, de la izquierda progresista demócrata, actualmente en el poder, como las mujeres del Squad, o la propia AOC, y es latina. Y las otras mujeres son afroamericanas, de tez morena, árabes o mestizas. Tenemos muchos mensajes en Twitter, Instagram, Facebook y otras plataformas de redes sociales al respecto.
Okay, so now Moshe is going to play a short video called What is Critical Race Theory? And as you listen to this video, please keep in mind that what he's explaining in terms of critical race theory against African Americans Okay, you can also see how that can be used against or stated against the Palestinians or against the B'nai Anousim.
Vamos a reproducir en este momento un video y la intención es que podamos entender que esto que se está hablando respecto a gente de tez blanca también puede ser utilizado respecto a la relación que palestinos, respecto a gente latina y demás. Esto todo engloba una idea en general.
Have you heard about critical race theory? I'm guessing you probably have. It has already insinuated itself into many institutions and is making rapid progress into others. If it takes hold, it will completely change the very nature of America and the way you live. Critical race theory holds that the most important thing about you is your race. The color of your skin, that's who you are. Not your behavior, not your values, not your environment.
You want me to translate while it's running on?
Oh, you can do it either a segment at a time or all at once at the end, whatever you like.
I'll do a resume after.
A race. In critical race theory, if you are a member of a minoritized racial group, their term, not mine, you are a victim of a system that is rigged against you, a system that doesn't want you to succeed. On the other hand, if your race is privileged, you're an exploiter, whether you intend to be or not. Critical race theory begins from the assumption that racism occurs in all interactions. To see how this works, consider this thought experiment. Imagine you own a shop and two customers enter at the same time, one white and one black. Who do you help first? If you help the black person first, critical race theory would say you did so because you don't trust black people to be left alone in your store. That's racist. If you help the white person first instead, critical race theory would say you did so because you think blacks are second-class citizens. That's racist too. That's critical race theory. It can find racism in anything, even if it has to read your mind to do it. Critical race theory is a uniquely American invention. Brewed up at Harvard Law School in the 70s, now part of the academic and media mainstream, it is also uniquely un-American, because it rejects the core tenets of the American classically liberal Judeo-Christian value system. It turns the bedrock American idea upside down. Here it is in the words of Richard Delgado and Gene Stefanchik, two leading proponents. Critical race theory questions the very foundations of the liberal order, including equality theory, legal reasoning, Enlightenment rationalism, and the neutral principles of constitutional law. It does this because critical race theory proponents assume racism is present everywhere and always, and they look for it critically until they find it. And they always find it. It has to be there because that's how the imperial European powers and then America set things up. Here, as in all dangerous academic theories, there is a kernel of truth. Human beings were not preoccupied with race until the 16th century, when Europeans began to explore and then colonize other parts of the world. Drawing distinctions between the races reached its peak in the 19th century with the widespread use of slave labor in North and South America. No one denies this. But since then, the Western world, and most especially America, has spent a lot of time, money, and blood breaking free of its racist past. It's been a rocky road for sure, but great progress has been made. Critical race theory says all this progress is a mirage. Racism never died, never even faded a little bit. It just hid itself better. Critical race theory, therefore, is not a continuation of the civil rights movement. It is, in fact, a repudiation of it. To critical race theorists, Martin Luther King was both wrong and naive. White Americans can never judge blacks by the content of their character. They can only judge them, always unfavorably, consciously or unconsciously, by the color of their skin. Ironically, not since the Aryan obsession in Germany in the 1930s and 1940s, or South African apartheid in the second half of the 20th century, has the social movement been so obsessed with race. Critical race theory is then, in a very real sense, a counter-American revolution. But that's a positive, not a negative to those who subscribe to the theory. The American experiment was given a 400-year tryout, and it doesn't work. So let's scrap it. That's what they believe. Is that what you believe? I'm going to guess that most of you don't. So how do we stop critical race theory before it infects the brains of too many decent Americans, especially young people, and turns us into something we have never been and shouldn't ever want to be? The answer is simple: refuse to accept it. Don't be intimidated by the heads I win, tails you lose logic of this self-destructive, America-hating, anti-reality idea. Don't be bullied into thinking that you're racist when you know you're not, or that you're a victim when you know you're not. Defend yourself while you still can. I'm James Lindsay, founder of New Discourses for Prager University.
Entonces, en resumen, lo que nos está diciendo, hay una teoría crítica de la raza, algo que nació en Harvard en el año 1970. La teoría crítica de la raza es que aquellos que están en una raza que en general han sido los que han tenido el poder y control, es decir, la gente de tez blanca, siempre va a ver de una forma racista a las otras personas. El contexto, por supuesto, amplio de ello. Incluso poniendo el ejemplo de dos personas que entraban a comprar en una tienda. Uno era de tez blanca, el otro era de tez oscura. Entran a la tienda al mismo tiempo y el tendero, el administrador, atiende primero el de tez morena. Esto sería racista. ¿Por qué? Porque lo está haciendo, que le da miedo que tal vez vaya a robar su tienda, le da miedo dejarlo solo. Pero si atiende al de tez blanca, lo está atendiendo porque le da preferencia y el de tez morena es como un ciudadano de segunda clase. El punto aquí con la teoría crítica de la raza es que aquellos que la proponen siempre van a tener las oportunidades de ganar en cualquier contexto. ¿Por qué? Siempre van a tener condiciones porque esta teoría busca cada detalle y siempre va a encontrar una razón para que cualquier acción sea discriminatoria. Entonces, esto es algo que se ha venido desarrollando con mucho más fuerza en los últimos tiempos, yendo incluso en contra de la Constitución y las bases de la política americana, y nunca desde aquellos momentos en la que la política aria de la Alemania nazi tenía tanta obsesión, o lo que pasó también en Sudáfrica, nunca antes se había hablado tanto de cuestiones de racismo y puesto tanto enfoque en ello. Por ello, aquellos que proponen este tipo de teoría van directamente en contra de cualquier suposición de que una persona tenga buenas intenciones, sino que siempre vas a estar actuando de una forma discriminatoria con gente de tez oscura. Ahora, la única manera de contrarrestar esta situación, ¿cómo es? Primero, oponiéndose a ella, no aceptarla como algo normal, como algo creciente, y por supuesto también no formar parte de ella. Es decir, si en algún momento te critican por hacer un acto que se pueda considerar discriminatorio, pero tú sabes que no lo estás haciendo, debes plantarte y decir, de ninguna manera voy a aceptar que a tu consideración sea un acto discriminatorio cuando claramente no lo es. Y por el otro lado, también si eres víctima de un aparente acto discriminatorio que no lo es, también aceptarlo y decir, no vengan aquí a construir un acto donde no lo hay. Entonces, es lo que presenta esta política de teoría de la crítica de la raza.
Okay. I'm going to go off script, Moshe, for a little bit. This is a very serious situation. It is starting in the United States. They're trying to bring critical race theory into the US schools, K through 12. And there are people who are fighting it in the US. But my concern is that on social media, there are people taking this concept and applying it to the Arab-Israeli conflict in terms of Israel being discriminatory against the Palestinians because they're brown. By the way, in the United States also, it's not just African Americans or Black, it's also brown, Latina. Okay, Latino, Latina. I'm concerned about Israel being accused of being white supremacists. We've seen this already on Twitter. Messages about white Ashkenazi Jews being discriminatory against the B'nai Anousim, and all of Israel being discriminatory against the Palestinian, or either one or both. It's a very, very serious situation if this is not fought very strenuously on social media. Okay, Moshe, I'm sorry.
Entonces, nos dice Yaffa que esta es una situación muy seria. No es únicamente que esté sucediendo en Estados Unidos, al final de cuentas en un mundo globalizado. Tiene sus focos en diferentes puntos. La cuestión en Estados Unidos es que ya la gente que presenta esta teoría crítica de la raza ha entrado a las escuelas de educación básica y ha tratado de inyectar esta idea en las mentes. Por supuesto, hay quien trata de contrarrestar esta idea y traer una corriente diferente. Sin embargo, las redes sociales pululan con este tipo de expresiones y en particular redes sociales se están empezando a volcar en torno al conflicto árabe-israelí y empezar a decir que esto tiene tintes también de supremacía blanca. Dice Yaffa, me preocupa que Israel sea considerado como un estado racista, opresor, y que los judíos ashkenazim, por su tez y color, ahora los pongan en los encasillen como aquellos que oprimen por temas de raza y color, por ejemplo, Avenida Anousim, que pueden ser originarios de algún país latinoamericano y por su raza ser privados de un acceso a servicios, conversión y demás.
Okay, so what is the solution? Going back to the script here, what's the solution? The situation right now is that more and more people are promoting this critical race theory, even wanting to bring it into the schools, as I mentioned already. They're trying to flip anti-Semitism, which is clearly racist, and instead accuse Israelis, and worldwide, by the way, also, of racism and white supremacy against all people of color. And their goal is to turn the world violently against Jews and against Israel and the Jewish state. Moshe.
Bien, ahora, la solución que propone Yaffa al respecto. Sabemos, una vez más, que la situación en este momento es que cada vez más personas están promoviendo la teoría crítica de la raza, incluso queriendo llevarla a las escuelas de Estados Unidos y las escuelas de educación elemental. Están tratando de darle vuelta al antisemitismo, que es, por supuesto, claramente racista, y en cambio acusan a los israelíes y al pueblo judío de tez blanca en todo el mundo de racismo y ser una supremacía blanca que está en contra de todas las personas de color. Su objetivo, el objetivo de esta teoría y de la gente que la propone es convertir al mundo en violencia contra los judíos y contra Israel como el Estado judío.
So we're mounting a campaign, a major PR campaign and online media blitz in opposition to these lies and distortions starting in June. Planning and investigations into all of this have been going on for the past couple of months. You know, there's a lot of people in the world that are in ostrich mode about the realities of what's happening in the world. And they need a bit of a kick in that area of their anatomy that's raised up high, flapping in the breeze, as I always used to say. Or they're asleep at the wheel and they need to be woken up. Now, what people do about all this, once they're informed and aware, is between them and Hashem. Okay, it's not up to us. But the only way to combat the lies and the distortions out there is with truth.
Bien, nos dice ahora que estamos montando una importante campaña de relaciones públicas y un bombardeo mediático en línea de oposición a estas mentiras y estas distorsiones. A partir de junio, la planificación y las investigaciones se llevaron a cabo los últimos meses. Precisamente por ello, iniciar a partir de junio, mucha gente va a escuchar al respecto. Y además, mucha gente que está en un modo avestruz. Es decir, simplemente esconden la cabeza en la arena y no quieren saber lo que está pasando. La idea es despertarlas y traerlos a la realidad sobre lo que está sucediendo y que necesitan de repente una pata de la ingle, dice, para despertar y salir a flote, necesitan en realidad que los despierten. Los que hacen todo esto, una vez que están informados y conscientes, será entre ellos y Hashem. Es decir, al final de cuentas, la gente en general tiene que saber las cosas. Una vez que estén informados y conscientes, bueno, tendrán lo que reportar con Hashem. Pero la única forma de combatir las mentiras es la verdad.
Okay, great. Thank you, Moshe. So I want to talk about the law of return a little bit. This is Israeli immigration law or secular law. And it's only about those who can prove their Jewishness. And there's 4 ways to do that. The first is by being born of a Jewish mother and with documentation of the mother's status as a Jew. Second is by at least one grandparent who is confirmed as Jewish and with documentation. For example, the Russian immigrants. The third way is by being a descendant of the Bnei Anousim who appeared before Beit Din and was accepted as a returnee, and they're given a return certificate. And we're working to help people do that today. We have about 20 rabbis we're working with in Israel, in the US, and in Latin America. And item number 4, or the way of number 4, is being a convert to Judaism. And this is for people who don't have strong enough evidence. By going to a Beit Din and being given a conversion certificate that is accepted by the Ministry of Interior. But currently, that conversion has to be done within the confines of, as I said earlier, a recognized and active Jewish community, without exception.
Bien, quiere ahora tomar un tema que es la ley del retorno. La ley de inmigración de Israel, es una ley secular, es solo para aquellos que puedan demostrar su judaísmo. Y en este sentido, son 4 cosas las que podrían ayudar en ello. La primera es por haber nacido de una madre judía, con documentación respecto al estado de la madre, por supuesto. La segunda es tener al menos un abuelo que esté confirmado como judío. Nuevamente, esto con base en documentación. Por ejemplo, inmigrantes rusos que vinieron a Israel y pudieron probar todo ello. Tercero, ser descendientes de Bnei Anousim, que se presentaron ante un Beit Din y fueron aceptados como retornados, y se les dio un certificado de retorno. Y el cuarto es ser un converso al judaísmo a través de un Beit Din y recibir un certificado de conversión que es aceptado por el Ministerio del Interior. Actualmente, esta conversión debe realizarse dentro de los límites de un certificado de conversión reconocido y activo por una comunidad judía, sin excepción. Sin embargo, hace ratito ya se mencionó que esto no es posible. Al final de cuentas, las comunidades no te aceptan por la Takana y por el otro lado tampoco puedes acceder.
So, Moshe, I just want to add that our work of Israel and Anousim to help the Bnei Anousim is in 2 areas. One is to have more and more rabbis accept people for Beit Din for a return certificate. As I said, we have 20 rabbis right now. I wish we had 100. So we're working on that. And we're working with people to help them to put together their evidence package and go to that Beit Din. So this is part of our work. The second part of our work is going to be trying to work with the Ministry of Interior to create an exception process for the Bnei Anousim, because they don't have that today. So that's the work of Israel and Anousim in those 2 areas.
Ahora, quiero hacer también un paréntesis aquí y decir, hay 2 cosas que podemos considerar nuestra misión o trabajo dentro del desempeño de Israel Anousim. Una de ellas es tener más rabinos. Hay que aclarar, ya hay 20 rabinos que están trabajando con Israel Anousim para poder hacer certificados de retorno. Dice Yaffa, me gustaría que fueran 100 y más. pero por lo pronto ya iniciamos con la labor y tenemos 20 rabinos enfocados en ello. La segunda es tratar de trabajar con el Ministerio de Interior para poder generar esta ley de excepción para los Bnei Anousim y también fomentar y generar esta oportunidad para que hagan su regreso e incorporarlos a la ley del retorno.
Okay, now on the Palestinian side, if the Palestinians, people in refugee camps is what I'm talking about, want to have Israel change the law of return, immigration law, to allow Palestinian refugees to come back to the land of their ancestors from 1948, and most especially probably for family reunification, that could only happen at the Knesset passing a law to that effect, and most likely within the context of a truly final status peace agreement that resolves this so-called Arab-Israeli conflict once and for all.
En este contexto, si los palestinos quieren que Israel cambie la ley de retorno, es decir, la ley de inmigración, para permitir que aquellos refugiados palestinos, llámese los palestinos que viven en zonas de refugiados, regresen a la tierra de Israel de sus antepasados, es decir, de antes de 1948, y más especialmente refiriéndonos a una reunificación familiar. Esto solo podría suceder en la Knesset. Ellos son los que tomarían esta decisión, o podrían tomar esta decisión, y en el contexto de un acuerdo de paz que sea en realidad definitivo y pueda resolver este supuesto conflicto árabe-israelí de una vez por todas.
And Moshe, just to go off script one more time a little bit, if that were to happen, that would take a lot of work to convince people that Israel should do that, and to convince the Palestinian leadership that that's what they want to do, is truly have peace between Israel and the Palestinian. It might be a two-state solution. It might be a one-state solution. We don't know anything about that. But it would take a lot of work and would take a lot of time and take a lot of influencing of people, to try to work towards that outcome. The question is, and it's really an important question, do the Palestinians really want to have peace with Israel, as we see from Gaza what their answer is, or at least Hamas, maybe not the Gazan people, but Hamas. So it's going to require some significant changes, if you will, regarding how the Palestinians treat Israelis and treat Jews. Okay, that's what it's going to require. Go ahead, Moshe.
En todo caso, si esto llegara a suceder, dice Yaffa, tomaría muchísimo trabajo, mucho tiempo, requeriría de la disposición de ambos lados y convencer a los dirigentes políticos palestinos al respecto, es decir, a que esta solución puede ser de una vez por todas la puerta para la paz. Y hay una pregunta fuerte en todo esto, es decir, los palestinos en realidad quisieran esto. Hay una respuesta ya que hemos visto en los últimos días, no refiriéndonos directamente a toda la población. Probablemente hay diferencia de opiniones allí, pero seguro de Hamas en este sentido. Lo que sabemos es que siquiera pensar en una opción como esta requeriría una labor exhaustiva para poder llevarla a cabo.
Now, there are some indications that this could happen, and we have a video for you that Moshe is going to play right now called Great News for Muslim. No conflict. Al-Aqsa Mosque is not in Jerusalem. Go ahead, Moshe.
Miren, vamos a poner un video que tiene que ver con una noticia buena, donde un dirigente religioso dice, excelentes noticias para el conflicto. Resulta que la mezquita del Aqsa ni siquiera está en Israel. Este es el video.
سنة 63 هجرية يعني بعد ما مات الإسراء والمعراج عفوا منك عشان نفهم الصورة اللي يعني هو تعلق المسلمين بالأقصى عشان بيقولوا محمد عرج على
اوكي بس انهي اقصى؟ هو سيدنا النبي راح فلسطين، سيدنا النبي ما راحش فلسطين. هو الاقصى اللي هو مسجد الاقصى ما زال موجود في مدينه الجعرانه، في مسجدين في مدينه الجعرانه، مسجد اسمه الادنى ومسجد اسمه الاقصى. الادنى الاقرب والاقصى الابعد ما زالوا موجودين. الاقصى ده هو ده نعمله بمستندات اسلاميه ب 62.
لهم حق بفلسطين على الاخر على الكلام.
مش موضوع حق بقى، احنا دلوقتي بنتكلم في ده انسان يعيش وده يعيش، خلاص، وده على نفس الارض.
الانسانيا بحق للكل يعيشوا، الانسانيا
لا بالنسبه للاقصى دي كذبه كبرى ان هو في فلسطين، دي كذبه كبرى. السبب كمان بسيط جدا. المسجد ده زي ما بنقول له اليافطه مكتوب عليه وما زالت مكتوبه من وقتها، يعني انه بناه ملك بن مروان 63 هجريه. طب 63 هجريه يعني بعد سيدنا النبي ما مات 60 سنه او اكثر او في الحدود يعني. طيب هو ازاي سيدنا النبي هيعمل يروح مسجد وهو ما كانش مبني اصلا؟ ادي واحد. نمره اثنين المسجد ده جنب الكنيسه اللي داخلها عمر وما رضاش يصلي فيها، خد بالك، اللي هي كانت ايليا وقتها، اسمها ايليا، وما رضاش يصلي فيها عشان المسلمين ما ياخذهاش من بعده مسجد. خد بالك من الكلام. وطلع صلى بره الكنيسه. طيب ما هو مبنى الكنيسه جنبيه المسجد الاقصى. طب لو المسجد الاقصى موجود يبقى كان سيدنا عمر هيصلي فيه، مش كده؟ طب ما صلاش فيه ومحدش قال ان كان في مسجد اقصى، يبقى ما كانش موجود. بكل بساطه يعني. الناس بس مش عايزه تسمع وتفهم. احنا عايشين في شعارات وكلام في كلام، وقضيه مصنوعه عشان يفضل الصراع شغال بدون توقف.
Entonces, en términos prácticos, lo que está diciendo este dirigente islámico tiene que ver con que no es posible que esta mezquita llamada Al-Aqsa, donde está el monte del templo, sea siquiera la mezquita que visitó el profeta Muhammad. Y en realidad, en el lugar en donde está la mezquita que es conocida como Al-Aqsa, está otra mezquita, es decir, todavía se reconoce el lugar en donde está la mezquita original. No es que esté en Israel, sino que está en otro lugar, y esto ha sido desde siempre conocido. Entonces, el apego religioso que se tiene a esta no debería ser un motivo de conflicto internacional, toda vez que ni siquiera es a la mezquita en donde pudo haber rezado este profeta.
Okay, now I had heard this story. I'm going off script, Moshe, I'm sorry, just a little bit. I had heard this story from a video by a Professor Kadar over a year ago, but he's a Jewish professor, so I didn't share it at the time because especially Palestinian people wouldn't have been able to listen to it, to hear it, because he's Jewish. So he wouldn't have had any credibility in their eyes. But this is different. This is a scholar in Saudi Arabia who's also a lawyer, who's talking about the fact that Al-Aqsa, which means the furthest mosque, Al-Aqsa Mosque, the furthest mosque, is in Saudi Arabia.
Entonces, lo que nos muestra aquí, en realidad, esta era información conocida, la había traído ya el profesor Dar, que es judío. Sin embargo, es conocido que si un judío habla que en realidad una mezquita no está ubicada en donde está, nadie le haría caso en el lado árabe. Sin embargo, el día de hoy, esta persona que vimos en el video es un erudito y un abogado en Arabia Saudita. Lo que nos está diciendo es que mismo en Arabia Saudita existen dos mezquitas. Una de ellas es conocida como el Aqsa y es la que está un poco más alejada del centro de la ciudad, pero siempre ha estado ahí.
So the final comment on this is, if this happens, that not only does Saudi Arabia promote this information getting out to all of the Arabs and all of the Arab countries, 22 Arab countries surrounding us here in the Middle East, and to the Arab Palestinians and Arabs worldwide. Okay, this can only be a sign to me, I'm saying this, my opinion, this can only be another sign of how close we are to the Mashiach coming, because he will bring peace, but there also has to be a certain amount of peace, maybe even before he comes. I don't know which comes first, but we are really, really close. And so we'll see how this transpires, but it's really hot off the press, this video coming out of Saudi Arabia.
Ahora nos dice Jaffa, no solo es tan importante ver que este video salga a la luz o la información, sino que sea un país árabe como Arabia Saudita que lo haga público y además que lo promueva. Al final de cuentas, que esta información salga y sea una puerta, es decir, al final de cuentas, si el mundo árabe dice, bueno, pues, le resta importancia ahora a este lugar donde está el monte del templo, y dice, al final de cuentas, no tenemos un apego a esto, el apego es a otra mezquita que está en Arabia Saudita. Podríamos pensar que esta es una de las puertas que podría traer la tan ansiada paz en la tierra de Israel, y en una opinión en particular de Yaffa dice, mi opinión es que esto también puede ser un signo de lo cerca que está Mashiach de venir al pueblo de Israel, y que al final de cuentas podamos tener esta ansiada paz, probablemente todo esto que estamos viendo, y tal vez podamos tener también un poco de paz antes de la era mesiánica.
Okay, great. So Moshe, if you could put up the map of the world that we have there of the Bnei Anousim, where they live today in various countries in the world. And I'm going to talk about the news, the latest news, since we did the lecture last month. And I wanted to show people because we made changes to the map and we've made changes to the organization from last month.
Bien, entonces nos quiere mostrar la ponente el mapa que tenemos respecto a la población y la extensión de dónde fueron aquellos Bnei Anousim en la diáspora. Entonces hubo algunas actualizaciones y hay noticias respecto del mes pasado. A continuación les voy a presentar.
Okay, so changes to the map. Very briefly, we added Goa, which is a section in India, the west coast of India there. We added all of the Middle East countries and North African countries. We have a new managing director for that area. It's called Middle East and North Africa. We have a new managing director for France that was added to the organization. And we have a new managing director for Spain. So we were adding 3 new managing directors. And now we also have a new managing director for rabbinic coordination. And he's going to be working with all of the 20 rabbis that I'd been working with personally, and any of the new rabbis that come on board to work with us to help the Bnei Anousim. Obviously, that's why they come on board, to work with the Bnei Anousim. So he's taking a huge burden off my shoulders. Not that the rabbis are a burden, but the sheer number, 20 people, 20 rabbis was a lot. Rabbis in Israel and in Europe and in Latin America and in the United States. Okay. That's the current number. We're going to be adding more. So he is going to now be the coordination focal point for all the Bnei Anousim who are working with these rabbis, the communities who are working with these rabbis, the individuals who want to come back to the faith and traditions of our ancestors as returnees. They have to go to a Beit Din. So he's going to be working with all of that, and it's phenomenal what he's going to be doing. Baruch Hashem.
Bien, como podrán darse cuenta, si vieron el mapa del mes pasado, Se añadieron algunas cosas. De entrada, el Golá, que está en la costa oeste de la India, se añadió, y todo lo que es África del Norte y Oriente Medio. En resumen, hay 3 nuevos directores administrativos en este sentido. Hay una directora general ahora para Francia, también España, el director gerente para los países de Oriente Medio y África del Norte, mostrados en el mapa, y ahora también tenemos un director gerente de coordinación rabínica. Hasta ahora, nos dice Yaffa, he tenido que ser yo directamente quien organice y me ponga en contacto con los 20 rabinos que trabajan desde Israel, los Estados Unidos, Europa y Latinoamérica. Pero bueno, ahora tenemos a este rabino que va a estar coordinando esta respuesta en general con los 20 rabinos que forman el equipo al respecto.
Fantastic. Okay, Moshe, if you could put back up the elephant in the room photo. I love that photo. What we're going to be doing is exposing this elephant in the room. Okay, exposing all of these issues to people, to influencers, to people in organizations in Israel called NGOs, non-government organizations, to Knesset members, to all kinds of people in Israel, and also in the US, Europe, and Latin America. And we need, for the social media campaigns in fighting the critical race theory, the use of critical race theory to claim that Israel is discriminatory against the Palestinians, which is not the case, or discriminating against the B'nai Anousim, which again, I'm giving the Ministry of Interior the benefit of the doubt that their admin policy was designed to keep Messianics out and not designed to be discriminatory against the B'nai Anousim, but we need to work with them on that to create a exception process. So we need a lot of help, people to join us in this fight so that we can do everything possible to follow Torah in all that we do. Moshe?
Nos dice Jaffa en este sentido, la idea es exponer a este elefante que está en el cuarto. A ella le gustó muchísimo esta imagen por lo obvio que es. Sin embargo, necesitamos de mucha ayuda para poder generar un movimiento fuerte en redes sociales con gente, influencers y demás, que puedan llegar y contrarrestar este elemento conocido como teoría crítica de la raza. Al final de cuentas, está tomando fuerza, se está volviendo algo en contexto general, algo bastante fuerte, y hay que hacer un movimiento fuerte también en contra. Al final de cuentas, dice Jaffa, voy a darle el beneficio de la duda respecto al Ministerio de Interior, respecto a esta ley, en el sentido de, ok, si me dices que es por evitar que los judíos mesiánicos, como se hacen llamar, entren en Israel, está bien, vamos a darte el beneficio de la duda y que no es en contra de los Bnei Anousim. Sin embargo, ahora vamos a ayudar al mismo Ministerio de Interior, a la misma imagen del pueblo de Israel, porque esto se les viene encima. Hay muchas redes sociales, hay muchos mensajes de Twitter y demás que están ya fomentando este odio por considerar cualquier acto de los israelíes o judíos como un acto discriminatorio en general. Entonces necesitamos que se unan a esta campaña y unir esfuerzos al respecto.
And the last part before we go into Q&A is that our PR campaigns and our media blitz and everything that we do will follow the following guideline. And I'm quoting from the Rosh Hashanah Machzor. Quote, I have given you a good teaching. Do not forsake my Torah. It's a tree of life for those who grasp it, and its supporters are praiseworthy. Its ways are pleasantness, Noam, and all of its paths are peace, Shalom. Bring us back to you, Hashem, and we shall return, renew our days as of old. Unquote.
Nos dice entonces, es hora de unirte a este esfuerzo. Estamos muchos más voluntarios para unirse a esta lucha. En Anousim hacemos todo lo humanamente posible para seguir la Torá en todo lo que hacemos. Y en nuestra campaña, en redes sociales y en los medios, estas pautas van a seguir manteniéndose como siempre. Y toma una nota y hace hincapié, nos trae también una fuente del Mahzor de Rosh Hashanah diciendo: les he dado una buena enseñanza, no abandonen mi Torah. Es un árbol de vida para aquellos que lo agarran, lo toman, y sus seguidores son dignos de alabanza. Sus caminos son agradables, Noam, y todos sus caminos son paz, Shalom. Tráenos de regreso a ti, Hashem, y volveremos, renovaremos nuestros días como antes, tomado del Mahzor de Rosh Hashanah.
Okay, now for the Q&A section, questions can be about anything mentioned in this lecture or the lecture of last month. Please be brief so we can accommodate as many questioners as possible. We only have a half an hour, and Les Glassman will facilitate the Q&A. Thank you. I'll let Moshe translate that, Les, and then you can go ahead.
Ok, entonces vamos a terminar aquí con la presentación general. Ahora es el tiempo para preguntas y respuestas. Pueden estar enfocadas en lo desarrollado el día de hoy o en lo desarrollado el mes pasado. Y bueno, tenemos un poquito más de media hora, pero pedimos que sean directo al punto para poder lograr una mejor administración del tiempo.
Les? Is Les there? Oops, Les isn't there. Oh, there you are.
I'm here. I just
Okay.
have to join this meeting, but I just want to show you something very quick. I don't know if you're aware, in the latest, this was on Shavuot, the Ami magazine, which is in America, and it goes all over the world. I got my copy here in Israel. So they have a most incredible article here on Colombia's new Jews. And it's the South American country is seeking a surprising boom in people converting to Judaism. Some claim to be descendants of conversos, but many others have different reasons for wanting to be Jewish. Yeah, but I don't know if you've seen this article over here. And they actually speak about the person who's very instrumental was Benjamin Arosta. He was formerly Henry Louis. So they
Yes.
they have quite a few
Yes.
pictures of him, and so this is quite an amazing article that's in the latest Ami, which was the Shavuot edition.
Yes, so my husband and I read Ami every week. We get it here.
Yeah.
And we read it cover to cover. And they could also do articles on what's going on in Mexico, what's going on in Brazil, what's going on in Cuba. There are many places where there's a lot of things like this happening and going on, whether, again, the people are converts or returnees or whatever. Okay, but it was a great article. I loved it. And by the way, we also hungrily read Skyview every week, John Loftus's column. John is a personal friend of mine from many years ago. So yes, we read it. Okay, anybody else have a question?
Well, again, the problem of the two-pronged problems that Anousim have, acceptance by their new core religions. It is actually the old core religions. Now they are reunited. And of course, the resentment and even animosity of those Christian communities that they have forsaken. Particularly, I'm interested to know whether those charismatic, evangelical, Jehovah Witnesses, there seems to be a revival in Latino countries, in Latin countries, of that type of Christianity. And I wonder how that relates to their former Christians, fellow Christians, and now becoming apostates, according to perhaps to their view. You know, that must be a very, very difficult existence. You know, in those in that environment, whether it's Central America or Latin or South America. Never mind.
Moshe, yeah,
Yeah.
Moshe, can you translate, please?
Ah, yes.
Entonces, de entrada nos habían mostrado un artículo sobre el periódico A mí en torno a los judíos de Colombia. Yaffa dice que también conoce el periódico, son asiduos lectores de él y en general trae muchas noticias respecto a Colombia, Cuba y algunos otros países de Latinoamérica. Después tenemos una pregunta respecto al profesor Asher. Sabemos que ya de entrada los conversos tienen ciertas situaciones, problemas, para ser aceptados por sus correligionarios, es decir, aquellos judíos de nacimiento que ahora tienen que adaptarlos a las comunidades y no siempre es algo fácil, por decirlo así. Y por el otro lado, hay comunidades cristianas de las que se están desprendiendo y de las cuales también podrían tener ciertos ataques o poder sufrir ahora de una condición de ser herejes, apóstatas, al públicamente apartarse de una fe cristiana, y toda vez que parece haber cierto, que se está reviviendo todo este tema del cristianismo evangélico, carismático, en Latinoamérica puede ser esto algo muy difícil. Ahora, encontrarte con aquellos, al grupo que pertenecías, y que te echen en cara el hecho de haber traicionado su fe.
So my answer to your question is this. A good number of the B'nai Anousim never were a part of Christianity. If you look at Puerto Rico, for example, many of the B'nai Anousim lived in the mountains, isolated from the cities and towns, okay? In order just for this, because they weren't really a part of Christianity, even though maybe the public assumed they were Christian, okay? But they seldom went to church, if ever. Now that's the situation in Puerto Rico, but there were many, many people in all over Latin America who weren't a part of Christianity. Or maybe their ancestors they were hiding, remember, as Jews. They were Jews in hiding. And so maybe they didn't start attending churches and trying to be more, not observant, but a cover in the last maybe 2 or 3 generations. But before that, they were definitely not a part of Christianity. So part of my answer is there hasn't been a problem. But another part of my answer is there are people who are turning their Christian family members and friends around, starting to share with them some of the truths that Christianity won't share, that Judaism knows very well, okay? And I talked to a lady who just recently told me that her father, and she's been having dialogue with her father, okay? And all of a sudden, her father said to her, you know that piece of paper you used to officially revoke your membership in Catholicism? Give it to me, please. I want to make one for myself. Okay. So you have to understand there's a lot going on here that's very, very positive, and not too much negative of really bad relations with family or friends, or even if they're strained in the beginning, eventually people get over it. You know, like this person also has a right to freedom of religion. Okay. The thing I worry about is this critical race theory coming down to Latin America to further complicate the situation for the B'nai Anousim, where people might actually try to convince them that Israel is discriminatory against them, is, you know, white supremacist and all this other baloney, okay, and further discourage the B'nai Anousim in Latin America who are having difficulty in making Aliyah. I think we've got to fix this problem really, really fast, so we don't have to deal with that. Moshe, can you translate, please?
Bien, la respuesta a la pregunta es, de entrada los B'nai Anousim no fueron parte, en su mayoría, de una vida religiosa activa en el catolicismo. Algunos de ellos, al escapar de sus países de origen, simplemente se fueron a vivir a la montaña, tratando de evadir cualquier contacto con algunos personajes en torno a la religión. Esto sucedió mucho, por ejemplo, en Puerto Rico, en donde por generaciones simplemente vivían aislados. Después, a través de 3 generaciones, dejaron un poquito de estar escondidos y tal vez se relacionaron más con la religión. Sin embargo, no ha habido un problema tan fuerte en ese sentido. Probablemente en determinados casos, hablando de amigos y familias, en conversiones o cuando hacen la cuestión de retorno, se den ciertos malos entendidos, se les haga un poco extraño el comportamiento, pero hay incluso casos como uno que sucedió en el que un papá de una hija que ya había hecho su desincorporación, que había renunciado a todo el catolicismo y estaba buscando de su judaísmo, cuando su papá habló con ella y le entendió sus razones, le dijo, ¿sabes qué? A ver, enséñame ese papel en donde te diste de baja de la religión católica. Dice, yo también quiero hacer lo mismo. La verdad es que no tiene sentido seguir aquí. Entonces, hay muchas cosas positivas en el desarrollo de todo el tema convenida Anousim en Latinoamérica, más que una persecución o ataques en contra de ellos por salir del contexto tradicional, religioso, social, donde hay una preocupación que tengo yo al respecto, dice Yaffa, es respecto a esta teoría de la crítica a la raza. ¿Por qué? Al fomentar que todos los actos provenientes de gente de tez blanca son un acto discriminatorio, podría ser ahora que los Bnei Anousim lleguen y reciban esta información y digan, bueno, no vale la pena ahora acercarme y tratar de buscar el retorno porque voy a ser discriminado, porque voy a ser atacado, y ya ni siquiera lo vean como algo que valga la pena acceder. Y esto en realidad dice, es algo que se tiene que corregir lo antes posible.
Baruch Hashem. Thank you, Moshe. Any other questions?
Thank you, Moshe. You want me to broach the issue of race theory?
Quickly and briefly.
Okay. I believe, don't you, that Israel and Jews in general, given their heterogeneity, are inoculated against the charge of racism and discrimination, given the fact that there is such bias, you know, the Sephardim, the Ashkenaz, etc. But as a generalization, I think that that is not a real issue, and most sane Arabs and Muslims will come to the aid of Israel if push comes to shove with this big lie. I think that those who apply the race theory and in opposition have a secret, an ulterior motive, and let me explain. It is to maybe deny the truthfulness of the Black Lives Movement, you know, the fact that there has been systemic racism for generations, and the Project 1619 finally coming to grips with the endemic racism in our society. I think a lot of good will come, and I have opposed OAC, as I indicated yesterday. I love her social program, but I said to her, you're asking me to contribute to, because it was a fundraising letter, to contribute to your bias against Israel, and you are a New Yorker representing a New York district. Shame on you. You know, so, and I don't worry too much about the 2 Muslim women. We have 30 Jewish Congress persons and 13 Jewish senators. Over time, they will meld, you know, they will learn to cooperate. Otherwise, they're going to be expelled by their own people in Minnesota and elsewhere that they got elected. So I'm very hopeful. You know, I don't see the darkness in this movement. Race theory, though, of course, inherently it is racist. So I utterly reject. But I also question those who protest too much. You know, they may have other agendas.
Okay, Moshe.
I'm sorry, Moshe.
Okay, entonces nos dice el profesor Asher, al final de cuentas creo que todos los judíos estamos vacunados en el término del racismo. Lo veo yo así porque a lo largo de las eras y a lo largo de los diferentes países que hemos tenido que estar siendo exiliados, terminas adoptando colores, costumbres, y al final de cuentas el pueblo judío es un gran pueblo de diferentes colores. En general, lo que veo en este momento como un movimiento de esta teoría de la crítica de la raza, sí es algo negativo, por supuesto, tiene sus bases en una cuestión de protesta y de negar todo un movimiento afroamericano, pero tampoco me sorprendería que tenga un efecto contrario. Al final de cuentas, incluso hablando de AOC y estas personas consideradas del squad, mujeres que han llegado a un poder judicial o legislativo en los Estados Unidos y que tienen tal vez una agenda pro-musulmana, al estar en un conjunto, en una legislación donde todavía hay muchos más que lo integran, no van a ser una parte representativa y al final de cuentas tienen que cooperar, si no, no vas a lograr cambios. Y tuvo la oportunidad, en algún momento incluso recibió una carta para apoyar públicamente o con fondos a estas personas que traen una agenda liberal al respecto y demás. Dice, o sea, no tanto por lo que me dices, traes buenas políticas públicas y sociales, pero el hecho simplemente que vayas en contra del Estado de Israel y que representes al Estado de Nueva York, ya debería darte vergüenza hacerlo tan descaradamente. El punto aquí, dice en su opinión, no veo mucho problema por todo el peso de la gente que les rodea y que van a tener que cooperar en un sistema legislativo o simplemente van a fallarle a todos aquellos que votaron por ellos y desaparecer en su programa.
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Now,
Thank you.
Asher, first of all, I love your optimism. And
We're Jewish. We're Jewish.
I know. And I hope it's true. But I also know that things that start out a certain way can be sort of manipulated and used in a way that was never intended by the authors, for example. And I know how that's done. Okay. It's called stealing the mind, actually. It's theft of the mind. Okay. It's a form of manipulation. If it's brought into K through 12 schools, it's propaganda. It's, indoctrination, if you will.
All of the above. Yeah.
So there are risks and there are dangers in there. And I'm also, my worldview, aside from the Jewish side of my mind, is as a manager, as a problem solver, and I taught creative problem solving in the business world. I'm also problem prevention orientation. Okay, I want to prevent this from becoming a major disaster against the Jews from Palestinians who would want to use it against Israel. And I want to prevent it from changing the minds and the heart of the B'nai Anousim who are struggling right now to make Aliyah and are denied right and left. So I really want to go and share this information with enough influences in Israel so they see, okay, that this difficulty, or it seems like it's difficult, I think it's very easy to solve, but this difficulty of accepting B'nai Anousim because of concern about messianics coming in and infiltrations and all this stuff is not real. It's not a real problem. It's very easy to fix or solve. And we have to do it now before the B'nai Anousim become the objects, if you will, of this kind of propaganda and turn against Israel. I don't want to see that happen. I want to prevent that from happening. So even though there might be some good things come out of it for the United States, which would be great. I lived in the United States most of my life before I made Aliyah. Okay, so I know what you're talking about. And I had people working for me of color that I sponsored, I promoted, I gave them extra education and promoted them in terms of with other managers, but then promoted them up in the chain. Okay. And I was a very strong advocate of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in my business career. Okay. And this is for corporate American companies. So I understand what they're trying to do. I don't want it to be misused against Israel by Palestinians or Arabs or whatever, or misused and used against the Palestinians to turn them away from Israel and convince them that Israel is white supremacist and all this stuff. I just want to prevent it. Moshe.
Nos
And then
dice
you,
Yaffa que, ok, aprecio mucho tu optimismo. Dice, la verdad es que entiendo la visión americana al respecto y tiene razón. En general, el movimiento de la política estadounidense es a través de ello. Sin embargo, las cosas que iniciaron y que tienden a ser manipuladas, como esta política de teoría de la raza, muchas veces permean y está diseñado y la gente lo está utilizando en una forma de indoctrinación y también en, por ejemplo, escuelas de carácter elemental y al final de cuentas permea. Yo, dice, como trabajé en diferentes empresas en torno a planeación, manejo de gerencia general y resolución de problemas, me interesa mucho ver, antes que un problema suceda, ver la manera de calmar esta situación. Y en particular, que esto no afecte en la mente de los Bnei Anousim para prevenir su acercamiento, que puedan llegar a decir, bueno, no vale la pena siquiera solicitar o acercarme al gobierno de Israel, porque es un gobierno que está siendo discriminatorio con la gente. Es lo que no quiero llegar a verlo. Sin embargo, también sé que aunque la política del Estado de Israel fue en torno a prevenir todo este flujo de misioneros mesiánicos, también sé que no es un problema grande, es algo que se puede resolver, a su parecer, de una forma fácil. Y antes que los Bnei Anousim sean el foco de esta política de crítica de la raza, es decir, que enfoquen sus esfuerzos en hacer creerles a estas personas y que ahora se quejen y vayan en contra del Estado de Israel por una política completamente errónea, dice, tratar de prevenirlo. He trabajado durante muchos tiempos en diferentes instituciones y empresas y tuve a mi cargo gente de color. Los ayudé, hice que surgieran en sus carreras y fueran obteniendo puestos elevados en respecto a carreras o pudieran obtener también educación superior. Entonces sé que es estar a cargo de personas y relacionarme con personas de color y ayudarlas al respecto. Precisamente por eso la idea es ahora prevenir y no dejar que algo que puede que no tenga tanto efecto en el aspecto de la política nacional de los Estados Unidos sí llegue a retrasar o afectar la visión de los Bnei Anousim respecto del Estado de Israel y su oportunidad de ser alguien.
Lowell, did you have a question?
Yes, actually, I have some comments. Number one, I don't know if most people are aware or even consider the Torah has no concept of race. It does have a concept of the families of man. This is a fundamental point which I don't know why it is not brought up more often by rabbis and Torah scholars in general discussion. The concept of race is not a biblical Israelite Jewish concept, period. It does talk about tribes, clans, and families of the sons of man from Adam and his 3 sons and the 70 nations. There's no concept of race. Where that comes from, now that's a whole nother question, race. It was popularized for his own purposes by Leon Trotsky, AKA Lev Bronstein. I have to look into more how he intended to use it as part of his planned world revolution. It was used before him in the 19th century. It's endemic to Hindu society with a caste system with absolutely a belief in races where humans are descended from ancient gods and you're from the foot and this one's from the eye and that one's from the anus. Those are the undercastes and they shouldn't intermarry because they're different species of humans. It is not a Jewish Israelite biblical concept, period. Ask your rabbi. Number 2, there is no Palestine and there are no Palestinians. What there are Arab tribes, clans, and families of the land of Israel, which is how they identify themselves when not speaking for Jew-hating Western consumption when wants to hear that, because then you can sanitize your Jew hatred. No, I'm just supporting the Palestinians. And furthermore, according to the research of Tzvi Sinai, who's actively pursuing it at the age of 75, most of the Arab clans, tribes, and families of the land of Israel, and according to the research of President Yitzhak Ben Tzvi, are descended from Jews who never left. And many of them, if you actually talk, they're aware of this. So those are 2 points. There's no such thing as race in traditional Israelite teaching. This is another problem, is a lot of people who pontificate from the Jewish world don't know what they're talking about almost anything that I say, please, just shut up. You want to talk about what, you don't have to be a Jewish world's leading expert on every subject. It's okay not to know something about everything. Just shut up. You're in Hollywood, you're in Washington. Just stop talking. You cause massive damage because the Goyim don't know the difference, especially if you wear a kippah. And if not, they think, well, they're born Jewish, and that's a whole nother issue. No concept of race in traditional Israelite Jewish teachings. And furthermore, most of the so-called Palestinians are descended from Jews who never left. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, that's an awful lot, Lowell. Sorry about that. But I want to get to some of the comments here that I'm seeing now in chat. From Maria, she was talking about, let's see, it's hard for me, the book of Ezekiel, talking about God will take the stick of Joseph and the stick of Judah. Maria, that's talking about the northern kingdom of Israel, okay? Ephraim, or Joseph with his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, being brought back together with the southern kingdom of Judah, okay? When those 2 kingdoms split after King Solomon, they were called the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Israel is in the north. They were taken away by the Assyrian captivity. The people were taken away. There are people who have already come back from those people. That prophecy is being fulfilled even today. The Bnei Manasseh have been coming back to Israel. The Ethiopians are considered to be from the tribe of Dan. The Pashtun also claim that they are descended from Moshe, his children. Okay, so there are people who say that that's already happening, but it's the so-called lost tribes, although some people say they were never lost and we know where they are, but it's the tribes, the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel, coming back and joining with the southern kingdom, which was the tribe of Judah, and it was called the southern kingdom of Judah. So that is happening. And there's a comment here about US President Biden is pushing the 2-state solution, and it's hard for me to read. Once this the approach of fulfillment of Joel. Okay, so I don't know. I suspect that we, the Jewish people, have no right to give land that God gave to us to anybody else. So I don't think the 2-state solution is viable. I don't think Hashem would ever permit it. And the last comment, it's a wise move. The Bnei Anousim are a great potential to Israel. Yes. And these people come from all walks of life. When they come to work with us, they fill out a form, a 10-question form, asking various questions, mostly about contact information and this and that. But one of the questions has them asked for their occupation. And their occupations are all over the map, from doctor, lawyer, nurse, entrepreneur, marketing person, tech person, computer tech person, all the way to hairdressers and barbers and construction workers and farmers. And I mean, it runs the gamut of all kinds of occupations. These people who keep coming to us, thank God, for our help. So they are a potential huge resource for Israel to come in as new Olim. It would be great. Okay, anything else people would like to ask? What do you think of our plan for a PR campaign besides what Asher already shared? Would anybody like to join that and help us out? We can always use more volunteers, either for the social media campaign or the PR or contacting Knesset members and NGO people. Anyone interested in helping us? That's the biggest challenge we have. 'Cause we're a
Whatever
small
you
group.
want, just email me and I'll go to work. We publish a monthly, I'm the B'nai B'rith president in the 5 towns. And to the extent that we can insert promotional material of this sort, this is a unique organization. So I know that my readers were astounded when I visited El Paso a few years ago and reported on my initial contact with the Anousim. So whatever you have, just don't hesitate. I have no shame in promoting my own.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
And of course,
I don't know if you know that Asher was born in a cave in 1943 in Greece under Nazi occupation, and his life was saved because the leader of the squad that came into the cave to get the Jews looked at him and said, "You look like my little baby son in Hamburg." And he said to the other souls, "We leave, we weren't here, and we're not coming back." So Asher speaks Romaniot in many languages and has knows what persecution is. And then came to the God of Israel, bless America, and built a life here, not far from JFK at the moment.
That's right. You
Wonderful.
are welcome anytime
Wonderful.
you pass by.
Wonderful. Thank you for your offer of help. And of course, Lowell and Les are already helping by allowing me and Moshe to come on, Root and Branch and do this every month. So that's also a help. Every little bit helps. It's only a little bit that's needed, but from a lot of people.
Yaffa, since we're going to end at 9, which is in 5 minutes, and you're the host, why don't you give the concluding remarks? And when you give me some sign or something that you're done, I'll press the stop recording button. We have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Sorry for starting late.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. No worries. So my concluding remarks, and Moshe will translate and then we'll be done, is, as I said just now, we need a lot of help, but it's because we need a lot of people giving a little bit of help here and there, an hour or 2 a week for social media, an hour or 2 a week for phone calls and stuff to influencers. They can reach me on email at yaffbatya.com. That's YAFF, short for Yaffa, not fully Yaffa. Yaffbatya, BATYA, at yahoo.com. They can find me on the internet, on Facebook and other places, etc. But the thing is, this video on YouTube is going to go out to all of our extended family, if you will, of Ezra and Anousim. We have a USA nonprofit called Friends of B'nai Anousim. I have 5,000 people in my Facebook network and another, I don't know how many followers. It's going to go out to all of them. It's going to go out to our groups. We have a lot of Facebook groups. We have about 30 Facebook groups for the B'nai Anousim. And of course, we have all of our organizations in all those countries that you saw on the map. And we have managing directors for all of those. So we have quite a huge audience. If we can get, 20 or 30 or so people for the social media stuff of monitoring these Twitters and monitoring these accounts for seeing what they're doing and responding in a very positive but very, truthful way about what's really going on to counter the lies, but very respectfully. That's what we need. So next month, I'll report on how many people joined as volunteers, not the names, but how many we have and what we've been doing with our PR campaign, our media blitz, and everything else that's going on. The people that we have joined us as rabbis, the people who have joined us from NGOs in Israel, And we'll report every month on what else is going on, what else is happening that we're involved with to help our people, the B'nai Anousim. Okay, Moshe, and then you can sign off.
Okay. Entonces, como conclusión, nos dice Yaffa, tenemos una necesidad, esta es mucha ayuda, lo que significa también mucha gente. Aquellas personas que puedan dedicar tal vez 1 o 2 horas día, de repente a la semana para hacer este trabajo. Y aquellos que lo quieran hacer podrían contactarse con el siguiente correo electrónico que es YAFB de burro A T Y A batya@yahoo.com. Es batya@yahoo.com para poder solicitar formar parte de este equipo. Al final de cuentas, este video va a ir, dice Yaffa, toda nuestra familia en el mundo. Tiene más de 5,000 personas ya siguiendo en las redes sociales, cerca de 30 grupos de Facebook, pero todavía es necesario más gente. Hay gente como directores en diferentes partes del mundo, gente que se encarga de la parte religiosa y rabinos que están dispuestos a ayudar, pero ahora más que nunca es necesario la labor en torno a las redes sociales. Y respecto a ello, 30 personas más que se puedan unir y poder trabajar en torno a inundar las redes sociales con esta información para que pueda ser del dominio público.
And thank you again, Moshe, for all the fantastic translations. And say that, please. Moshe.
Es más que, bueno, entonces me da muchas gracias también, Yaffa, por la ayuda con la traducción.
Thank you,
Es un
Moshe.
placer poder ayudar. Gracias.
They have to be introduced to my 7 grandchildren.
Yeah, I see these beautiful children. Wow. Gorgeous. Okay, Lolo, we're done. You can shut down. Thank you very, very much.